Happy New Year! Most of we readers are looking ahead to 2024, at least in some way, looking at our reading. But there were a few books on my 2023 reading list that didn't make my top 10. It would be impossible for me to capture all of my wonderful reading experiences in a top 10 or 12 list. So I at least wanted to mention a few more that I still think about that were really meaningful reading experiences for me. So there's three that I have written down here that I want to make sure that I mention to possibly put on your list for 2024. Maybe these are books that you either had in your mind at some point or that you might even own that you haven't gotten to yet. And I had such a reading experience with all three of these that I just want to share. I just want to share with all of you. So the first one is actually the only book that I own, which is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This was written, I think, or published anyway, in about 2017, and it tells the story of Cyrus Avery. Oh, and it takes place in Ireland, in a small town in Ireland in the 1940s. And this is a Bildungsroman. Cyril. I said Cyrus. It's actually Cyril. He feels like an outsider from the very second that he has awareness of who he is, because he's adopted, and his adopted family lets him know that he's not a true Avery, that he's adopted. And he also knows from a pretty young age that he's gay. And this is the 1940s in a small town, a small Catholic town predominantly in Ireland. And he goes through his young life, of course, having to hide who he is, but also brings along with him the feelings of guilt and shame eventually, because of the time period that this story is written, that he's growing up in. He has to conform outwardly, and he does that to the best of his ability. What stands out about my reading experience is, number one, how much empathy I had for Cyril, how much I was on his side, and also the humor. And the humor mostly in the dialogue. There are two really important friendships. One is a childhood friendship with Julian, which lasts through later years in school. And then later with a doctor. I think might be in the 1980s. I feel like it drags a little at the end. That might be me, but it's a pretty long book. And I felt like the pace and the humor that you have like in the first half or so of the book starts to wane as Cyril's life goes on. But maybe that's Cyril. I don't know. But if you own this book and you just haven't gotten to it yet, I wanted to mention it. It was a really memorable reading experience for me. Okay, these others are ones that I don't own. And the second one is Veronica by Mary Gateskill. I'm new to Mary Gateskill. I read another one, a short book. Was it called something like My Pleasures, that I really liked? And then I moved on to Veronica. Veronica was published in 2005. It follows Allison. She was a model in 1980s, 1970s New York City. But when we meet her at the beginning of the story, she's in her 40s, and she would describe herself as washed up. In other words, she's had a hard life, and the things that she did when she was younger have caught up with her. Even if she's not saying that explicitly, we know from Mary Gateskill's writing that this is the case. Allison is taking a lot of pain medication when we meet her because she was in a car accident, and she also just has psychological scars from her lifestyle in the 70s and 80s. This story is centered around Allison telling us when she met a coworker named Veronica. Veronica is one of these multi-dimensional, hard to describe or hard to pinpoint people. So she's an office worker. They become reluctant friends, reluctant on Allison's part. Veronica's perfectly happy to make friends with Allison. Veronica's the kind of office person that is wearing kind of funky clothes. She's much older than Allison when Allison meets her. Allison thinks she's ancient, probably. She's got a cubicle that's full of knickknacks and but there's a dichotomy to Veronica, because there's what Allison starts to find out through their friendship is that she isn't all that she appears. She isn't just this older, kind of eccentric appearing person. She's also in a long-term relationship with a bisexual partner. This is the 1980s. AIDS is a big and ever increasing killer in New York and elsewhere. Allison, I feel like, is able to mature in ways she would have never thought through her friendship with Veronica, and to the point where it really, this friendship and how life evolves for Veronica really calls on some stepping up that Allison sees herself doing to support her friend. It's a 200-some page book. It packs a lot of punch, and I just haven't stopped thinking about it. The other book I wanted to mention is Nevada by Imogen Biddy. This was written 10 years ago. It was having its 10-year anniversary, so it was republished by I don't know which press, but it was written, so Imogen Biddy, a trans woman herself. This book is known now as a cult classic, a cult transgender classic. And Imogen wrote this book about Maria, who identifies as a transgender woman. At the start of the story, Maria's girlfriend has broken up with her, and Maria is just beside herself. She doesn't know what to do. She's got a little bit of a semi-wild lifestyle in that she uses drugs, and she doesn't always make the smartest choices. She is trying to console herself through some binges and through her friends helping to support her. They don't have a lot of money. She ends up taking her girlfriend's car and driving to Nevada. She feels like this is going to be the fresh start for me. So from New York City to Nevada. And it takes half the book to get to that point where she's actually going to Nevada. But in Nevada is the richest part of the book. It's a tiny part of the book, but what happens in Nevada is just so extraordinarily written by Imogen Biddy. She's walking through a Walmart, I think it is, and she comes across this young man. And there's something about this young man that Maria is able to read almost immediately, almost instinctively. And they just strike up this friendship. And then the story carries on from there. But her instinct and her wanting to help, I think his name is James, help James with some things that James may not see about himself were just extraordinary. The afterword that is written by Imogen Biddy nowadays, 10 years later, is as worthwhile as the story itself. It's such an interesting update from Imogen, and how she never would have guessed that this book became the cult classic that it did. It was such an enjoyable read, such a unique read, and I don't think she ever wrote another novel. She's a writer, but I couldn't find that she's written another one. The last one a writer that I discovered in 2023 and that has really stuck with me since is Catherine Scanlon, Kick the Latch. I went on to read Og 9 Fog, which I think is a book she might have been published before Kick the Latch, but nevertheless, Kick the Latch is the one that stuck with me. What I love about Catherine Scanlon is writes these little stories from, in the case of Kick the Latch, from first person interviews that she had with an actual horse trainer named Sonia, I think. Catherine had a series of interviews with her, and she then took bits and pieces from Sonia's life and put them in the tiniest little vignette chapters of Kick the Latch to weave together a narrative about Sonia's unique life as a horse trainer, the horse track life, the very masculine nature of this job, the dangerous nature of it, both with the horses and with the people. She not only can beautifully read a horse, but she's very intuitive about people also. It's a slice of life that you don't always see, but distilled into the tiniest little vignettes, like in a poetic nature, was such a memorable reading experience. It takes such craft to be able to take transcribed interviews and just distill it. She does the same thing in Og 9 Fog in a different way. Super memorable. It's like an auto buy or an auto hold for me from the library, or the next time Catherine Scanlon has a book out. Those are the books that stick with me that I wanted to chat about. Thanks for watching. I'm starting to think about 2024 plans other than the read-alongs that started today, January 1st. Starting to get my thoughts together. I will love watching all of your videos about 2024. Please come join the conversation about any of these books and authors that I've mentioned. I would love to hear from any one of you about them. Again, Happy New Year, and I'll see you on the next one.